So the Jobs Act does four things, right? And the issue here is what you want to do is step up the rate of economic growth. And in the long run, that can only happen through the private sector and consumer spending. But in the short run, you can, in some sense, goose that a little, get it going a little bit faster. And, giving people some assurance that there's going to be more money in their pocket and that businesses have more money, which you can do if you pass this, affects that confidence that we're going to be in a little bit more stable environment for the next year. So, you know this, I'll say very quickly, there are four pieces to this bill, and if it does not pass as a single entity, which looks unlikely right now, we are breaking it up into pieces, and we'll say we'll vote on each of these separately if we have to. The first piece is tax cuts for businesses, particularly aimed at giving them incentives to hire. So one of these is 100% payroll tax holiday for anyone who in 2012, compared to your 2011 wage base, hires new people, increases wages, or increases hours. So any increase in your wage base in 2012 over 2011 has no payroll tax on it. So it's a big incentive to hire early in the year, to move your hiring up and, get an advantage the entire year off that. There's also, another general just payroll tax that's particularly targeted to small businesses.
That's a good question on the payroll tax holiday. It might be an incentive to move your hiring up, but is it really an incentive to hire if you don't have demand?
So, you always have to be working on the margin here, right? I mean, it's not like every business is going to go out to hire. The question is, how big is that margin of people who are out there looking, saying, yeah, we're going to have to hire in the near future, so let's move it up. Sure. And, I think there's at least a little bit of evidence to suggest that, we are at a point where firms are behaving cautiously. Profits look pretty good in a number of areas. That the capacity and the need to hire is coming down the road, and that's exactly the world in which you think this is going to have an impact, right? Okay, so that's the business side. On the consumer side, the proposal is to extend and expand the payroll tax cut that was available in 2011. So for the average family, this would put a little over $1,500 in their pocket that they would not otherwise have. And, that's real money. And again, you have to believe they're going to spend it and not save it. And, we can come back and talk about that. I think there's good reasons to believe that households are at a point where they're ready to do some consumer spending. My best indicator for this is, what does all Americans want first before they buy a new car? The average age of the car on the road is almost 10 years right now. It's an amazing number.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, and I mean, there's got to be an enormous pent-up demand for new cars.
Average age is 10 years. So how would that compare, say, 5 years ago?
It was like seven and eight.
So
people
significantly higher.
Yeah. So, I got to look up the exact statistics. I could get those to you, but in any case, it's a real indication that there is, I think, some pent-up demand out there, and that much of these dollars will be spent. The third piece of this is what's called sort of employment and modernization. And part of this is basically giving money to states and localities to retain teachers and first responders. And if you look at the data on employment, the big losses in employment at the state and local level are education is right there, number one. And that might be short run what we have to do, but long term, boy, is that foolish. So it's sort of money to retain teachers and policemen and cops, firefighters, and then there's a bunch of money here for infrastructure improvements, which on the one hand employs the highest unemployed group in the economy, which is construction workers. On the other hand, has big long term benefits. If you look at our infrastructure problems out there of building a better road, airport, rail system, and since smart grid and broadband belongs in that as well, to let products move faster in a global economy. So that's the third piece, is sort of the employment modernization. And then the fourth piece of this looks specifically at the long-term unemployed, where long-term unemployed are people who've been unemployed for 6 months or longer. It gives a $4,000 tax credit to any firm that hires someone who is unemployed for 6 months or longer. And it further it extends unemployment benefits, I should say, which given the number of people who are out there job hunting and not finding yet, I think is absolutely necessary. And then unemployment insurance is run by the states. It frees up a number of constraints on states and gives them all sorts of incentives to do some very creative things with unemployment insurance. And in particular, to encourage people to take internships, training, to do some part-time work, and still retain a certain portion of their unemployment benefits. So you could go do a training position that maybe pays minimum wage, and in an entirely different industry than you've been in, and won't lose all your unemployment benefits immediately because you've accepted employment. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's it's an encouragement to give people a little support to try to do some of that. So, job cuts for tax cuts for consumers, tax cuts for businesses, modernization and employment, and then the long-term unemployed are the four pieces. And just sort of, I've talked long enough to end this. Everything in here are things that have been received bipartisan support in the recent past. What's the infrastructure proposal? It is basically the National Infrastructure Bank proposal, which has been co-sponsored in the Senate by Kay Bailey Hutchinson and John Kerry, Republican and Democrat. Why is it that our employment program limits itself to teachers and first responders? Because that is what's been supported in the past by both Republicans and Democrats. It's very much crafted to say these are things that should be supported in this economic environment and have been supported in the recent past by and then last comment. The president has also laid out a long-term deficit reduction plan which pays for this in the process of doing $4 trillion in deficit reduction in the long run over 10 years.